Her name isn't really Sarah, but let's call her that. Sarah is a vibrant, warm, creative woman, the kind of woman who lights up every room she walks into. And yet, she can't seem to remember where she put her keys 5 minutes ago. She keeps wondering why she can't stay on top of routines, why she forgets important things like birthdays, appointments, even bills. And then she spirals with guilt. Why her emotions sometimes feel so loud in her head, even when she tries to play it cool. And then there's her husband. We'll call him Mark. Mark is the exact opposite of her. He's steady, structured, strategic. He's the guy who balances the checkbook down to the penny and has a color coded calendar for every family member. He loves her, he loves Sarah, but he's tired. He's tired of being the one who remembers everything. He's tired of feeling like he's parenting more than partnering. He's tired of repeating himself and wondering why she can't just try harder. And Sarah, well, she's exhausted too. She's exhausted from the constant corrections, exhausted from feeling like a disappointment to him, from trying to change a brain that just doesn't work like his. Sarah's my client, and in every one of our sessions, we talk about this: the constant misunderstandings, the mismatched expectations, and her longing to be seen, not fixed. And if you're listening to this and thinking, that's us, that's me and my partner, then I want you to know you're not alone and you're not broken. You're just a couple navigating a relationship dynamic that no one potentially ever taught you how to manage. And that's what we're talking about today: how to understand and support each other when ADHD is part of your marriage. Hey, welcome back to the High Ticket Woman, where this season we're talking about the real work of building strong, emotionally connected marriages that don't just survive, they bloom. I'm your host, Debbie Cottle, therapist, coach, and your companion on this journey of faith based relationship healing. Welcome back. Today, we're talking about a topic that I see more and more couples wrestling with, and yet so few people are equipped to navigate. And that is managing ADHD in a marriage. Whether you're the one with ADHD or your spouse is, or you're not even sure, but something about this is resonating, stick with me, okay? Because this is one of those issues that, left unspoken, can slowly begin to erode the health of the marriage. ADHD isn't just a school age problem. We tend to associate it with kids, right? But it's actually a neurodevelopmental condition that affects attention, impulse control, memory, emotion regulation, and our ability to follow through all the way into adulthood. It shows up everywhere in adult life and especially in marriage. And when undiagnosed or unmanaged or treated, this is what it tends to look like in the relationship. Missed details, like, forgetting to pick up your kids or pay a bill on time or respond to a text. You see it come on your phone and then you forget all about it. Disorganization, unfinished tasks, clutter. It just, those scattered priorities. Impulsivity, blurting things out or making decisions without really thinking them through. Emotional intensity, that can mean mood swings, irritability, or just feeling, quote unquote, too much. And also hyper focus. This is another characteristic of ADHD in an adult, which would be being so laser focused on one thing, whether that's work or a hobby or a project, to the point where your spouse begins to feel invisible. And this can create real frustration for that spouse, the one who doesn't have ADHD. So they can often end up feeling very overwhelmed, like they have to do everything themselves. Maybe tasks around the house, maybe responsibilities with the kids. They can feel resentful of promises that you've made and then broken. They can begin to feel unseen, unheard, and unprioritized. And sometimes they might even feel more like a parent parenting you than a partner. Now, on the flip side, you might, if you're the one with ADHD, you might be seeing them as being controlling or nagging or never happy or satisfied with you. Because when you're in this dynamic, communication gets really distorted, right? One partner feels exhausted and lonely, the other feels constantly criticized and misunderstood. And it's not about bad intentions. I always want to bring you back to the fact that it's a neurological difference. There's differences going on in the ADHD brain versus the non-ADHD brain, and those differences need understanding, not judgment. Now, how does it feel for the partner who has ADHD, right? If you're the one with ADHD, let me speak to you for a second, because you might constantly feel like a disappointment. This is something that Sarah definitely struggles with. You feel misunderstood even though you're doing your best, you're trying. You might feel exhausted from pretending and masking what you really feel on the inside, just trying to get it right over and over and over. And you may be easily triggered by conflict. So things get to the point where they just really set you off quickly. You might even be afraid to bring things up because, well, you don't want another argument. ADHD often comes with a lot of shame because if you're the one who has it, you know you forgot the appointment. You know you meant to follow through on that conversation. You wanted to be more present, but your brain works differently. And without strategies and support, your spouse's frustration only confirms what you already have come to fear. I'm not good enough. I'm certainly not good enough for my spouse. And that cycle, it's not sustainable in your marriage. But guess what? There is a way to turn this around. Okay. I want to give you 5 ways to manage ADHD in a marriage. They're really powerful if you use them. So the first one, you got to get diagnosed and then educate yourself, right? So if you or your spouse suspect that ADHD is a factor in this marriage, go get a formal diagnosis, right? Not just, yes, there are quizzes online and they can be useful to kind of set this in motion, but you do actually need an actual evaluation by a professional, right? It's highly treatable, but you have to get that diagnosis first. And of course, there are medications out there that can help manage this. You need to educate yourself on what it means to be an adult with ADHD and how it affects your marriage. So, a couple good books for you to read. One is called Driven to Distraction, and the other one is It You, Me, or Adult ADHD? I like that one because it rhymes, but they're both really great books. Okay. And those books go into how the ADHD brain works and how that your inability to regulate your emotions affects the way that you communicate with your spouse. The second tool is to fight the symptom, not each other. All right. So instead of saying, one or the other, you saying, you never listen. You never listen to me. Try something instead like, hey, I know your brain gets pulled in a lot of directions. Can we set a time to talk when it's easier for you to focus? So this is if you're the one who doesn't have ADHD and you're frustrated and you're frustrated with specific symptoms, address the symptom. Don't blame your spouse. If you're the one with the symptoms, then talk about it in that way. Hey, I'm really trying. You know my brain gets pulled in a lot of directions. Let's set a time to talk about how to strategize. And then that takes us to step 3. You've got to build routines that work for both of you. In other words, you gotta create some systems within your marriage, visible symptoms. We're talking about simple tools like whiteboards. Whiteboards become your new best friend if ADHD is something that's a part of your marriage, and sharing your digital calendars and having checklists. You cannot rely on memory. If it's not written down, it's going to be forgotten. And that doesn't mean that one or the other of you doesn't care. It just means we're dealing with ADHD. So creating those visible symptoms. What have you got going on today? Are your email notifications, you know, turned on? We shared our calendars, so I'm gonna send you a reminder if that's okay. And you figure it out between the two of you, but you've got to have that visible reminder. Okay. Again, I love whiteboards for this. Doesn't do you any good to have a whiteboard that's hanging on the wall that's blank, though. That's not what we're talking about. You got to use it. Okay, the fourth tip is for you to really redefine what emotional safety looks like in your marriage, okay? Because the ADHD brain, it feels more deeply than most people realize. So if your partner who has ADHD is defensive, they're not being defiant. Remember, there's that underlying shame or fear and almost certainly overwhelm, right? They get overwhelmed very easily. So don't meet intensity with more intensity. That's not going to be useful. Instead, say things like, hey, I'm not your enemy. I just want to feel connected again. I know this isn't all your fault. I just want to understand you better. And in reverse, if you're the one with ADHD, hey, I'm really trying here. Let's not fight about this. I want us to feel connected. I want us to figure this out. I'm working hard at this. I want to help you understand what it's like to be me and what's going on in my brain so that we can come to a solution together. All right. That's emotional safety. Both of you feeling able to say what's really on your heart rather than just always being at each other. Okay. The fifth and final tip that I want to give you is get outside help. Now, we've already sort of talked about this one, when it comes to educating yourself, but all the self help books in the world don't actually really, they're not customized to you and your specific situation in your marriage, are they? So, this is where, you really going and getting professional help becomes such a key for you, right? That's why I am here. That's what I do, right? And that's what I also created my Marriage in Bloom 6-month marriage intensive for, okay? To address issues like this head on. Whether one of you's been diagnosed with ADHD or not, or you're just really overwhelmed by, the dynamic it's causing in your marriage. And remember, you don't have to do this alone, okay? So whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, whether it's getting medication or a combination of these things, you can get help. All right. Let me leave you with this. ADHD doesn't make you a bad partner or your spouse a bad partner. It doesn't make one or the other of you unreasonable. It just means you need different tools to build the same connection. If you've been quietly suffering in this, either as the person with ADHD or the one who's trying to hold it all together, you don't have to just survive, okay? Your marriage can thrive. God didn't create or design your marriage to be a battlefield. It's designed to be a place of belonging and understanding and growth. So that's it for today. I want you to, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for showing up. I really appreciate you being here and listening. Keep staying curious. Remember, healing is always possible, and you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be teachable. I'll see you next week.